Today, we're going to deconstruct a really fascinating piece of promotional writing. It's for a tour to Armenia. But here's the thing, we're not planning a trip. Instead, we're going to break down the powerful techniques they use to turn what's essentially a vacation into this profound, once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage. All right, let's dive in. So get this, the text doesn't open with prices or, fun activities. No, it starts with this grand philosophical statement. This is the hook. Right off the bat, it elevates the entire conversation from just travel to something about destiny. It taps into that universal feeling we all have, that our time is short and we should spend it on things that actually matter. It's a classic move to grab your attention and set a very specific, very serious tone. Okay, so once they've set that big, serious tone, the first step in this persuasive journey can begin. And the goal here? It's all about framing this trip not as just a simple getaway, but as something much, much deeper, a spiritual quest. And you gotta notice the language they use, back to the beginning. Think about that. This isn't about seeing new things, it's about returning to an origin point. This kind of framing is so powerful because it appeals to this deep desire for purpose, for roots, for meaning. It turns you from a potential tourist into a seeker. Look, an abstract promise of a spiritual journey is great and all, but to make it feel real, you have to ground it somewhere. So the next step is to anchor this whole narrative to a tangible, almost mythical, physical location. And that anchor point? It's Mount Ararat. By connecting the trip to the story of Noah's Ark, the text links its abstract spiritual promise to one of the most foundational stories in the entire Judeo-Christian tradition. Suddenly, this isn't just some mountain you're looking at, it's the very site of humanity's second chance. And just listen to the language here. It's so evocative, so biblical. Phrases like renewed by God's grace are incredibly potent. They're designed to imbue the physical geography of Armenia with this immense spiritual significance, making the land itself a character in this epic story. It's honestly a masterclass in using words to paint a landscape with meaning. All right, so they've got the mythic, legendary foundation locked in. Now what? Well, now they add another layer, something that feels a bit more concrete, more verifiable. Historical proof. This is all about strengthening their claims and building credibility. And this is where we see a really key technique. It's a bold, simple, and memorable claim, presented as an undisputed fact. The world's first Christian nation. I mean, that's a headline that grabs your attention, right? It immediately positions Armenia not just as a place of biblical legend, but as this absolutely pivotal location in world history. But you can't just make a big claim like that without backing it up. And they know it, so they immediately provide some support. By naming a specific place, the church at Ekmiadzin, and describing it as active today, that grand historical claim is instantly made more believable. It gives you something tangible to latch onto, a real place you could actually go and visit. Okay, so let's recap. We've got the mythic location, we've got the historical significance, so now the narrative shifts from the what and the where to the who. It moves to the emotional core of the whole promised experience. Connection and belonging. This line is absolutely crucial. It's promising that you won't just be a tourist looking at old buildings. No, you will encounter a people. You'll connect with them, and you'll become part of this one biblical family. It is an incredibly appealing promise because it taps right into that deep human need we all have for community and for a shared identity. And here's where it gets really clever. They take that big, abstract, emotional promise and break it down into, well, basically a checklist of awesome experiences. Each bullet point turns a grand idea into an actual actionable item for your itinerary. You can literally picture yourself doing these things, which makes the entire proposition feel so much more real and achievable. So after building this really powerful case, layering on the spiritual meaning, the historical weight, and that emotional connection, the narrative finally moves toward its ultimate purpose. It's time to turn all that inspiration into action. And this slide really lays it all out, right? The contrast is stark. On one hand, you have this epic story of faith, renewal, and belonging. And on the other, the very practical goal of selling a tour package. The entire narrative we've just analyzed was carefully constructed to bridge that gap, to make the commercial goal feel like the natural, even necessary conclusion to the spiritual desire that it just created. And all of this, the entire journey we've been on, it all leads right here, to the final destination, a clear, direct, and totally unambiguous call to action. After all that storytelling and all that emotion, the final instruction is simple. Contact us. The narrative's job is officially done. So let's just do a quick recap of the path they took us on. It started with a huge idea about the meaning of life, then anchored it to a famous place, layered on some historical facts, promised a deep sense of community, and then, and only at the very end, did they ask for the sale. It's a highly effective formula. And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. We've just seen how a powerful narrative can totally transform our perception. A mountain becomes the cradle of humanity. A church becomes proof of a legacy. A vacation becomes a pilgrimage. The stories we tell about places don't just describe them. They fundamentally change what those places are to us. It's something to think about the next time you see any kind of travel ad. Thanks for digging into this with me.